Hi folks, how you all doing? It's Lawrence Can Draw, and I'm out for another walk and talk. Today, just before we get started, I want to just mention that from today I'm going to be changing this up and moving these videos to Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. You can find me easily by going and just searching for Lawrence Can Draw or Lawrence Man. And yes, the reason I'm doing this is basically to reach out and, meet a slightly bigger audience and yes, grow my following a little bit. Yeah, if you want to come find me, just search for me. Pretty easy. Yeah, all I want to do is just say hi to everybody else. Obviously, I'm already on these platforms, but I feel I just want to branch out a tiny bit more and just not neglect anyone. I don't want to make these platforms just simply for reposting my YouTube content. It's not a permanent thing, of course, by any means, but yeah, I just wanna make sure that I'm spreading those wings a little bit, exercising my social media, and just test everything. Now, it's great if you join me because you might also meet other people. It's a great way of finding other influences as well, finding different artists, and basically saying hi to other people. So just for the next week or so, come follow me on those platforms. I will be posting my regular style of content to YouTube as well, so there'll be reviews and other videos on my YouTube channel. So yes, come say hello, come follow me on my walk and talk videos on Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn if you want, whichever of those platforms makes you feel more comfortable. So right, moving on now. What do I want to talk about today? Well, I want to mention Adobe Fresco. I thought that might be a nice subject to go with. Why? Because yesterday we talked about Microsoft Surface and the event there. So, yeah, Adobe Fresco was mentioned on the Surface event, and yes, iPad Pro users, big patch of water, gonna jump. Adobe Fresco was mentioned at the iPad Pro event a long time ago, and iPad Pro users have been saying, yeah, we're getting Adobe Photoshop. It's not proper Adobe Photoshop, is it? We've known that for a while, and there's a distinction, a big distinction. Even though it's the closest thing to Photoshop that there ever has been. There's been other Photoshop apps for the iPad and for tablets, but Fresco is the nearest thing. So it's very nice at the Surface event to see that Microsoft made a big song and dance about the Surface and PCs, obviously, all getting Fresco as well from Adobe. So it's not just an iPad thing. If you're not a big iPad fan, if you're not a big, Mac iOS fan, that you also get Fresco. So if you were thinking, do I get an iPad? You don't have to now. That's the big distinction. You don't have to go Apple. If you're a PC user, you don't have to. You can, get any tablet you want, any PC tablet, any Windows tablet, and you can have Fresco. Thumbs up. I mean, Fresco's good if your Windows tablet isn't powerful enough to run fully blown Photoshop. If it's a Surface, if it's one of the better Surfaces, if you've gone top end, you can have full blown Photoshop. But if it's, say, the low end Surface, then get Fresco. But yeah. Asides that, it has layers, fully formed layers. Has a lot of good tools, a lot of good brushes, watercolor brushes, so on and so forth. If you're a big fan of, say, Corel Painter, as I am, obviously being a Corel Master Painter Elite, long time, then yes, you're going to love Adobe Fresco. It looks pretty awesome. I've had a little bit of a play with it. I'll be putting up some videos soon. It's good. So, moving on from that, what do I want to mention now? So, I want to go ahead and mention Sketchable. Sketchable is obviously one of my favorite programs. I'm a brand ambassador for those guys as well. Sketchable Artisan. Sorry, lots of noises going on around me because it's raining today. So, Sketchable Artisan and Sketchable. Now, Sketchable is an awesome app. It's very lightweight, and the reason it's lightweight is because it's built to work on tablets, to work on Windows tablets, and you really need shoulder muscles. Doing these walk and talk videos is what's going to give me shoulder muscles. And yes, Sketchable is built for very lightweight Windows tablets. And if you think Fresco is built for tablets, Sketchable will work. It's a powerhouse for lightweight tablets. It really is. And it was built for Surface devices specifically, whereas Fresco wasn't. Fresco was never built for Surface devices. Another giant muddy puddle. I'm not going to get around this one. And I did. I'll have to stitch that video together. Accidentally pressed stop when I landed. So, yes. Sketchable is built for lightweight tablets, and it's built specifically for the Surface, but also works on every other Windows tablet, obviously. So, yes, the Sketchable team has been deep building updates for quite a while now, and they listen to their fans. They specifically listen to your request that you send in. So if you've ever complained to me about Sketchable, I do mention specific requests that people mention in my comments. You know, if there's something that I hear over and over again, or if somebody specifically is nice to me and talks to me about their requests and their concerns, then I do talk to Sketchable about that. But I beta test for Sketchable, have done for a long time now. So, you know, I give a lot of feedback, and obviously I've done a lot of artwork for them and for Microsoft as well, funnily enough. So, yeah, Sketchable is coming up with some updates, and you're going to see some updates that are even, I won't say similar, but you're going to see some updates which give Fresco a run for their money. Certainly bring it up to date. So you're going to be looking at Sketchable and looking at Fresco and thinking, you know what? Both of these make incredibly good apps for the new Surface devices. You know, the Surface Pro 7 and the Surface Pro X. And you're going to be thinking, might be worth time, you know, might be time for an update. Yeah, so personally, it's really a good time, and I think Sketchable, for me, yeah, I don't want to tell you what's in Sketchable because it's still in beta test mode, and you know, NDAs and stuff like that. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, though I know a couple of other people have maybe said some stuff online already, but you know, shush for me. Yeah, it's all kind of cool. Fresco's out there at the moment, people are tweeting stuff. I still think layers is kind of the most exciting thing on Fresco, which is kind of sad because layers, yeah, really. But yes, so I don't know. Fresco is a big step up for apps on Windows tablets, Ducks. But yeah, I mean, it's because if you've got a low power tablet, then, you know, the more apps, the better. But when you're looking at something like an iPad Pro, there's one app really, maybe two. But we all know which apps they are. So yeah, there's only one name that everybody seems to mention on the iPad Pro. And I don't even need to say which one that is. But yes, so realistically, for the Surface, there's 2 apps that everybody seems to love, but now you're getting a whole lot more devices. Wow, this path is riddled. My trainers are now filthy and muddy, and they were clean before. I'm gonna have to come back somewhere along here as well. This is what happens when you walk and talk. Jogger. So yeah, that's really the crux of what I wanted to talk about, and I got through that really, really fast as well. If anyone says I'm too close to the camera, it's because my arm's tired. Yeah, I think having good apps is really what makes a good device as well. So realistically, I always say to manufacturers when I talk to them face to face, you know, if you want your device to sell well, how about buying some of the apps and developing them? The only trouble is there that when developers seem to do that, when hardware developers seem to do that, the apps end up going to hell. Or, you know, they buy them, stick their brand on them, and never do anything with them ever again. So yeah, it's better when software developers keep a hold of them. A real shame. It'd be better if hardware developers just invested in the software developers, gave them money. You do see that happening. You do see that happening, and I have seen Microsoft actually doing that. I won't mention which brands they're investing in because I don't know the specifics of what their agreements are. So even though I have knowledge of that, I don't know if that's public knowledge. Realistically, the hardware that's been coming out over the last, say, 2 years. Yeah, let's say 2 years, and I think it's been in development for the last 4 years. Let's say that, because typically the technology that I have knowledge of, I know, right now I know of tech that's gonna come out in 3 years' time. And that's usually the case. So, if companies keep tech in development for 3 years, it means that the technology that's out now has been in development for 3 years. And right now we're seeing a lot of creative use technology. Like I said yesterday, we now are getting free phones that are useful for creatives, which is amazing. You know, for a long time we've only had the Galaxy Note to draw on. Now we're getting the Huawei Mate 20X and the Surface phone. I'm not going to call it anything else, even though they really don't like us to. So, yeah. And they've obviously been in development for at least 3 years. Surface phone a lot longer actually. But, yeah, so Acer have their brand of creative hardware, but to be honest, at first I was excited about that. Really, that's a branding thing. If you look at a lot of those devices, they're not really creative. I would say at least 3 of those devices are pretty standard. Like the one that's basically their version of the MacBook Pro. There's nothing creative about that at all. You know, it's not even got a clamshell hinge on it. And if they'd have wanted it to have been a creative device, they could have at least put a clamshell hinge on it. So, you know, that was the reason I walked away from Apple devices, is that the MacBook Pro should have, by now at least in 2019, should have been a rival for the Surface Book. We knew they were never going to do it. We knew they were never going to, I mean, they even openly said they were never going to give their MacBook Pros a stylus, which is a rotting shame. You know, they should have had an iPhone that was a rival for the Galaxy Note. Again, this is why creatives are leaving Apple in droves now. And I think it's going to happen even more once the Microsoft Surface phone comes out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Wow, I've walked quite a distance. So, a lot of noises out here in the country. Yeah, so really, I think there's a lot going on in the tech world at the moment for artists. I think there's a lot going on both software and hardware wise. Lenovo bringing us the Yoga range, and we've got some really good, I mentioned yesterday, smart home technology, which I'm still working on how that can be used in artistic ways. I have been enjoying the Lenovo smart clock. I have to walk this way. I'm going to walk on the grass. Yeah. My son, my 4-year-old son, loves the smart clock because he's figured it out completely. And it's, hey Google, volume 10. You know, hey Google, tell me a joke. And he's laughing at the joke before the joke's even been like told. So he's obviously not getting the jokes at all, but he loves being told jokes, which is hilarious. Personally, yeah, I'm finding it useful to find out information like train times and stuff, and for just little factoids. But yeah, it's good. Like I say, I've got to figure out an artistic way of using it. I wonder if you can tell me RGB values. But that's why I think I'm looking forward to seeing Alexa on the Yoga. I think then it might come in handy for artistic ways of using it. Yeah, that will be cool. Look, a little bridge. Let me show you that. Might come down here and paint. So, yeah, interesting. I think for me, the more devices with styluses are obviously the better, and the more of those I can get into review, obviously. Had an interesting conversation on LinkedIn, which is one of the reasons I want to move these videos over to places like LinkedIn. I find LinkedIn is awesome for having more professional conversations. And if many of you are professionals, which I know you are, then join me on places like LinkedIn. You know, feel free to send me a connection request over there. You know, I'm connected with a lot of you anyway, but it's always great to meet you and say hi. But yes, LinkedIn's great because I have wonderful conversations with people from Microsoft and Adobe and places like that about a lot of this kind of stuff. And earlier today I was having a conversation with someone from Samsung who was involved with, you know, part of the S Pen kind of technology. And yeah, we were really having a conversation about what we both thought of the new Microsoft Pen, and we both had different views on it, and why we thought they'd done what they'd done, and how we both thought it would work. And yeah, really it came down to the fact that I think I'm going to need that hands-on time with the Microsoft Pen. You know, one thing I didn't mention yesterday is the fact that I think materials come into play a lot. Will that flat shape, which is obviously for charging, will that flat shape be as comfortable as I think it might be? Because the material, if the material is a softer material or if it's a harsh plastic material, if it's nice and soft, then it will matter. Then it'll be okay. But if it's kind of a harsher plastic material, won't feel as nice in the hand. It's going to be worrisome. That eraser, one thing I asked for was that soft eraser. I mentioned this yesterday, so I don't need to tread that old ground. Another thing I didn't mention yesterday was the Surface Pro X. That certainly is more interesting than the Surface Pro 7, but it looks more like an iPad Pro. And one thing we have noticed is that the iPads, the iPad Pro, is starting to look more like the Surface Pro with the keyboard and everything like that. And the Surface Pro X is looking more like an iPad Pro. So it's funny that they're both kind of swapping over in terms of how they look. Yeah, they're both obviously competing in the same market. Both of them are advertising Adobe Fresco. It's great for Adobe, obviously. Now, Adobe started out with Apple, which, you know, Apple used to be an amazingly creative tech company. Now, and I've gotten into a bit of flack for saying this before, but now Apple are a phone company. Yeah. So, yeah, Microsoft are really taking over that role, I guess. What do you say? I mean, whether you agree with me or not, it's up to you. I think I'm going to leave it there for the day. I'm going to do a lot more walking, but I can't think of anything more that I need to speak about. If I do, I'll put it in another video on the walk back. Maybe leave that for tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Keep being creative. And I shall speak to you all later. I would upload this now, but I have to go home and stitch these two videos together. So yes, keep being creative. Look at this pothole. This is the kind of thing I've been contending with. I'll see you all later. Ciao for now.